Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties, Chapter 74.
Okay, imagine a world where an empire gets its name changed. Just poof, overnight.
Right.
And I'm not talking about some corporate rebrand with a new logo.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a world where officials who are literally called pigs and dogs are suddenly running the government.
And not just running it, they're at the absolute highest levels.
Exactly. And the fate of the entire throne, the lives of millions of people, it all comes down to one single cryptic dream about a parrot.
A parrot with broken wings. It really does sound like something out of a fantasy novel, doesn't it?
It does.
But this is a very real, very specific slice of Chinese history.
We're trying to unpack this fascinating duality you find in the court of Empress Wu Zetian.
It's one of my favorite contradictions in all of history, really. Because on one side, you have this absolutely ruthless political maneuvering.
Assassination attempts, succession crises.
The whole 9 yards. It threatens to just tear the empire apart. And then you flip the page and those same people are, living this life of decadent leisure.
Hosting poetry contests in lotus gardens.
Exactly. And engaging in some, surprisingly racy wordplay. It's a wild contrast.
It's a very wild ride.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right in. We have to start with the usurper, with Wu Zetian herself. The chapter opens with this massive regime change.
A huge one. She's not content just being the power behind the throne anymore. She makes it official. She changes the dynasty name from Tang to Zhu.
And that is a huge deal. I think we might miss how big a deal that actually is today.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just changing the letterhead on the palace stationery. She's invoking the mandate of heaven. She is declaring that the Tang dynasty, the Li family line, is, for all intents and purposes, spiritually dead.
She's trying to sever that entire timeline.
Completely. She's starting a new one with herself as the origin point, and she takes the title Holy Spirit Emperor, Shang Hongdi.
Holy Spirit Emperor, that is a bold title.
It's a statement of absolute divinity. And to back it up, she establishes 7 ancestral temples just for the Wu family.
So she's telling everyone, the Li family is the past, the Wu family is the eternal future.
That's the message, loud and clear.
But to pull off something that big, you need supporters. You need your hype men. And the source material describes them in, let's say, less than flattering terms.
Pig and dog officials is the term, yeah.
Right. Is that just the author being salty? Or is there something real behind that insult?
I think it's aggressive for sure, but it points to a real phenomenon in her court. The text zeroes in on this one character, Fu Yui.
Right.
In the traditional hierarchy, this guy was a nobody, a man of no account. He didn't come up through the civil service exams. He didn't have a prestigious family.
So how does a nobody like that get into the inner circle of the Holy Spirit Emperor?
Networking. Simple as that. He had one very important friend, a man named Huaiyu.
That name rings a bell. Remind me who Wai is.
Huaiyu was a monk, but more importantly, he was the Empress's male favorite.
Ah, okay, a favorite. So this often meant having a very intimate and personal influence over the ruler.
That's a polite way of putting it, yes. So because Fu Yui is buddies with the Empress's favorite monk, he gets a fast pass to the top.
I see.
He's the one who flatters her into changing the state name, and he's the one who starts the campaign to get her nephew, Wu Chengzi, named as the new crown prince.
So the pig and dog label is basically code for unqualified sycophants who just knew the right people.
It implies they're subhuman, morally speaking, that they're just appetites eating and barking without any of the Confucian virtue a proper official should have.
And this, of course, sets up the family drama. The Wu nephews are hungry for power. You've got Wu Chengzi, who the pig and dog faction is pushing for.
Yeah.
But there's another nephew in the wings, right?
There is, Wu Sanxi. He gets back to the capital and realizes he's kind of late to the party.
Okay.
He hears his cousin is making a play for the throne, and the text says his heart harbored unfairness.
So what does he do?
He rushes to the palace to see the Empress, but he gets stopped by Shengwan Wanner.
And Wander's a whole other story. She's the Empress's personal secretary, her ghostwriter, her gatekeeper, an incredibly powerful figure.
She's the most powerful woman in the empire after the Empress herself. And she tells Sanxi, basically, the Empress has an eye ailment. She's with the doctor.
And this next part, it just says so much about how this court actually worked.
It's a tiny detail, but it speaks volumes. Sanxi doesn't argue, he doesn't protest, he just slides something over to Wanner.
The little gift.
A pair of exquisite jade rings. He says they're a gift on behalf of Lady Wei, but, let's call it what it is. It's a bribe.
And what does she do?
Pockets them. Without missing a beat, it just shows you the casual corruption. Doesn't matter if you're the emperor's nephew, you still have to pay the toll to the gatekeeper.
So Sanxi gets his audience. But while he's trying to play his own games, the Empress is dealing with something else.
This is the real crisis. She is seriously, genuinely considering making her nephew, Wu Chengzi, the heir.
Which would be the end of the line for the Tang.
It's over. The Li family is finished. And this is where things get, well, mystical. The entire fate of the dynasty comes down to a dream.
Right. Tell me about this dream.
It's a disturbing one. She dreams she's holding a parrot, but the parrot has 2 broken wings. It can't fly. And she wakes up deeply troubled by this.
So she calls in an expert.
She calls in Direnji.
I know that name. He's a legend, right? The ultimate statesman, almost like a detective figure in some stories.
Exactly. If anyone can solve a riddle, it's Direnji. So she tells in the dream, I'm holding a parrot, its wings are broken. Now, to you or me, that just sounds like, what, anxiety?
Yeah, I'm stressed, I feel broken, something like that.
But Direnji sees something else immediately. He sees a pun.
A pot.
In Chinese, the word for parrot is yin-wu. The Wu in parrot sounds exactly like her surname, Wu.
Oh, so she is the parrot.
She is the parrot. And what about the 2 wings?
Wow.
Her 2 biological sons, the Lai family princes. Direnji tells her, straight up, if you promote your nephews, the Wu clan, you are breaking your own wings. You are crippling yourself.
That is an incredibly powerful image. But he doesn't stop there, does he? He hits her with what I call the killer argument. And it's all about ancestral worship.
This is the turning point, and it's so important to understand the stakes here. For us, in the West, ancestor worship can sound like just, remembering your grandparents fondly.
Right.
But in this context, it is metaphysical mechanics. It's like a spiritual pipeline.
A pipeline.
Yes. The belief is that a spirit in the afterlife needs sustenance from the living, offerings, incense, prayers. But that pipeline only flows vertically. From son to father, grandson to grandfather.
It doesn't flow sideways.
Does not flow sideways to an aunt. A nephew worships his own father, not his aunt. So Direnji puts it to her plainly. Who is closer, a nephew or a son?
And it sounds like a sentimental question, but he's actually asking about the fate of her eternal soul.
He is. He warns her. No nephew has ever become emperor and then enshrined his aunt in the imperial temple. If you pass the throne to the Wu clan, your spirit will be locked out of the temple rituals.
So she's not just losing the dynasty, she's facing eternal spiritual starvation.
She's erasing herself from the afterlife. She becomes a hungry ghost with no one to feed her.
That's terrifying.
It's the ultimate existential threat, and it works. Instantly. The text says, the Empress realized. Just like that. The combination of the dream and Direnji's logic, it saves the Tang line.
Wow.
She drops the plan to crown the nephew, recalls her son Zongzong, and they have this tearful reunion. The broken wings are healed.
You would think after a crisis like that, avoiding the end of your dynasty, everyone would get back to some serious governance.
You would think.
But the source gives us total whiplash here.
It really does. It's almost like a cinematic cut. We go from this heavy, tearful political drama straight to boredom. The Empress is bored.
She's just sitting around. And her daughter, Princess Taiping, comes in and actually scolds her for it.
Yeah, she says something like, why are you doing this cold, dull work when the lotus flowers are blooming?
She's basically saying, Mom, stop ruling and come party.
And she drags the Empress out to the Whistling Crane Hall to look at the flowers.
So let's look at the guest list for this little garden party. Because when you see who's at the table, it just feels like a powder keg.
It's a very specific and very dangerous group of people. You have the Empress and Princess Taiping, of course. But then you have Wu Sanxi.
The nephew who
Bribed his way into the palace. He's sitting right there.
awkward.
So awkward. And Sheng Wanwaner, the bribe-taking secretary, is there. And of course, the Zhang brothers.
Cheng Zong and Yizi, these are the famous male favorites, right?
The very same. Known for their incredible good looks, their artistic talents, and their very close connections to both the princess and the Empress.
So they're all drinking wine, looking at these lotus flowers, and the Empress decides the scene needs some poetry.
And this leads to this little bit of banter that it reveals the whole vibe of this group. Wanner says they have flowers, wine, and poetry, the 3 beauties.
Okay.
But then she looks around the table and says, can't people count as a beauty too?
Wait, is she hitting on the guests?
Yeah.
Right in front of the Empress.
She's pushing the envelope. She's suggesting that the people there, meaning the handsome men in the room, are just as much an aesthetic object as the flowers or the wine.
And Zhang Yizi picks right up on it.
Oh, immediately. He jumps in and suggests using people as a metaphor for the lotus flowers to avoid being cliché. So they turn it into a game, a poetry contest about the 12 beauties.
Okay, so this game, they draw lots from a box. 12 topics, 6 people, so everyone writes 2 poems. And the themes are, well, they're not exactly long live the emperor.
Not at all. These are intimate, almost voyeuristic themes. We're talking beauty drunk, beauty sleeping, beauty bathing.
It's an incredible window into their private lives.
Yeah.
They aren't writing about statecraft, they're writing about seduction.
They're writing about the boudoir.
Let's start with the empress herself. She draws beauty drunk and beauty sleeping.
And her imagery is amazing. For Beauty Drunk, she writes about jade mountains collapsing.
Jade mountains collapsing.
It's a poetic way of describing a beautiful person just falling over completely drunk.
That's a very classy way to say passed out.
It is. And for Beauty Sleeping, she describes messy makeup and the sweat on a powdered cheek. It's so sensory, so human. This is the woman who just reorganized the entire government.
And now she's writing about hangovers.
Exactly.
Okay, then we get to Shangwen Wanner. Her poems seem to cause the biggest stir.
They do. She draws beauty bathing and beauty filtering. And the beauty bathing poem is the one that really gets a reaction.
What then?
She describes a woman loosening her robes, the scent of warmth rising up. But then she adds this detail about a little sister peeking through the paper window to watch her bathe.
Whoa, that feels incredibly risky. She's an employee writing erotica about a peeping Tom in front of her boss, the Emperor of China.
It is risky. But look at the Empress's reaction. She calls Warner an expert at this sort of thing. She jokes that if these poems got out, no one would believe they were written inside the palace.
So she's teasing her about being too worldly.
Or maybe about being experienced. It implies Warner knows exactly what she's writing about. It just shows the level of intimacy and comfort in that little circle.
Then there's Wu Sanxi, the plotting nephew. He gets beauty speaking and beauty sick.
And his beauty speaking poem is fascinating. It involves a parrot.
A parrot. It all comes back to the parrot.
It does. He writes about teaching a parrot to count the number of your lovers.
A snitch parrot. That's pretty ironic coming from him.
A snitch parrot, yes. And his beauty sick poem is all about lovesickness, a waistline shrinking because someone is pining away. It's very melodramatic.
And what about Princess Taiping?
She gets beauty's shadow and beauty walking. Hers are very delicate. The shadow follows the beauty everywhere. The walking is all about fragrant dust and avoiding mud. Very prim and proper.
Fitting for a princess. And last, Zhang Yizi.
He gets beauty standing and beauty singing, so a beauty waiting in the dew for the moon to rise, and another singing songs of resentment and charm.
So they all finish. They've covered the whole spectrum of boudoir life. What's the final verdict from the Empress?
This is the most critical insight, I think. She looks at all 12 poems and she says they're so similar in style, the fragrant vanity or boudoir style, they look like they were written by a single hand.
Written by a single hand. That's a profound observation. What do you think she's really seeing there?
She's seeing that despite all their rivalries, Sansi wanting the throne, the insults, the backstabbing culturally, they are one organism.
A bubble.
A bubble. They think alike, they write alike, they value the exact same aesthetic of luxury and romance. It's shocking to realize these are the same people holding the power of life and death over millions.
1 minute, they're debating the extinction of a dynasty with a parrot dream. The next, they're giggling over rhymes about bathwater.
And that's what makes this source so rich. It doesn't shy away from that contradiction at all. It puts the pig and dog politics right next to the lotus flower poetry.
It says, this is all part of the same life.
Exactly. The scene shifts abruptly. Usually when we talk about high-stakes political drama, we're talking about, assassinations, coups, armies crossing rivers, that sort of thing.
Big, epic stuff.
Right. But today, the entire fate of a family and maybe even the moral standing of an empire, it all hinges on a single greasy pork bun.
It sounds completely ridiculous when you put it that way, but yeah, a pork bun hidden inside a sleeve.
Hidden in a sleeve. And honestly, this source material is just giving us whiplash. It gives you two totally different versions of the famous Empress Wu Zetian.
It's a real study in extremes.
Mm.
I mean, on one hand, you have a ruler who orders a man to be beaten to death and then burned to ash for a personal insult.
And on the other,
you have a judge showing this incredible nuance and wisdom regarding a steamed bun.
we have to square those two things. How can the same person be a brutal tyrant 1 minute and then, I don't know, a reasonable, almost benevolent matriarch the next? We're looking at the fall of the old guard of the Tang dynasty, the rise of a police state, and the well, the very complex rationality of Empress Wu.
But to understand the bun, we have to start with the blood. We have to start with the withered tree.
Right. So paint the picture for us. We're in the court of Empress Wu. What's the atmosphere like?
It's tense. I mean, paranoia is the baseline. At this point in the story, the Empress is surrounding herself with new favorites, specifically the Zhang brothers, Changzong and Yizi.
And who are they?
They're young, they're beautiful men, and the text has the scene where a courtier, Sanxi, is just flattering them endlessly, saying that Changzong's face is as beautiful as a lotus flower.
And Empress plays along with this.
Oh, she loves it. She jokes, no, the lotus looks like Changzong. It shows you exactly where her affection lies now.
But that creates a problem.
A huge problem, because the former favorite, a man named Huai, who has the title Duke of Yi, he's still around. And he is watching his influence just evaporate.
Okay, so tell us about this guy, Huai. Because in the source, he comes across as, well, incredibly entitled.
That is putting it mildly. Huai is a monk turned noble. He's got massive wealth, he's surrounded by women, and he's just grown so arrogant.
He thinks he's untouchable.
Totally. Because of his past relationship with the Empress. So when she sends a eunuch, a guy named Yu King, to summon him to court, Huai doesn't just, decline, he self-destructs.
He's drunk at the time. Rude.
Drunk and belligerent. But it's not just the alcohol, it's the ego. When the summons arrives, he looks at the eunuch and says, and this is a paraphrase from the translation, "I have tender blossoms here to pick. Why would I climb an old withered tree?"
Old withered tree.
Yeah.
He's talking about the Empress, the most powerful woman on the planet.
It is a breathtakingly stupid thing to say. You have to understand the context of her reign. She was constantly fighting for legitimacy. She was a woman in a role made for men, and she was getting older.
So her vitality was linked to her political strength.
Exactly. Calling her a withered tree wasn't just calling her old. It was attacking her right to rule. It was basically calling her politically dead.
So the eunuch, Mu King, he goes back and reports this.
Verbatim. And that's a key detail about this court. The eunuchs are the eyes and ears. They are extensions of the Empress's will. There are no secrets.
And Wu Zetian's reaction.
It's just ice-cold fury. The text says this insult triggers this cascade of memories. She suddenly remembers that Huai was the one responsible for burning down the Heaven Hall and the Ming Hall.
Wait, hold on. He burned down imperial palaces?
In the backstory, yes, he was reckless. But she tolerated it because she favored him. Now that he's called her a withered tree, all that tolerance is gone. Suddenly, those past crimes are very, very relevant again.
So she wants him gone, but she doesn't send the army.
No. She sends her daughter, Princess Taiping.
Ah, Taiping is the fixer here.
She's the fixer. She sees her mother's rage, but she advises a more surgical approach. She says, "Mother, don't be angry. I will remove the trace of him by tomorrow."
Remove the trace. That is just chillingly professional.
It is. Taiping knows a public arrest could be messy. It might draw attention to the insult, to the scandal. So she sets a trap.
No.
She gathers 20 or 30 strong palace maids, which is basically a hit squad, and hides them in the garden. Then she sends eunuchs back to Huai with a lie.
They tell him the Empress is waiting for him, wants to see him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They play right into his vanity. They make him think the withered tree comment was forgiven or maybe even ignored, and that he's being called for a romantic reconciliation.
And he falls for it.
He walks right into the garden, and instead of the Empress, he finds Princess Taiping.
And what does she say?
She's just sitting there, stone-faced. She calls him a dulled slave, which is a nasty jab at his monk background. And then she produces a warrant.
A death warrant.
Sort of. It's a petition from another official requesting his castration.
Wow. That's quite a specific punishment.
It's symbolic, you see. It strips him of his manhood, which is the only reason he ever had access to the inner court. The eunuchs and the maids just swarm him. They castrate him and then beat him to death right there in the garden.
And the cleanup.
It's brutally efficient. They wrap the body in a reed mat, ship it off to the White Horse Temple, and burn it to ash. Princess Taiping literally fulfills her promise to remove the trace.
So this establishes our baseline. The Empress is ruthless. You insult her, you are erased.
Correct. No questions asked.
Which makes the next part of the story so confusing. We go from a brutal execution to, what, a dietary restriction?
Well, think about the mindset.
Yeah.
The Empress has just killed a former lover. The Ming Hall had burned down. There are reports of floods and droughts out in the provinces.
Oh, okay.
In the Chinese political worldview, natural disasters are like a performance review from heaven. If it's not raining enough, the emperor is doing something wrong.
So she feels guilty, or at least politically vulnerable.
She feels the need to restore cosmic balance, so she issues a ban on slaughter. A total prohibition on killing any animals or catching any fish. It's a way to accumulate spiritual merit, to show heaven she's pious and merciful.
And this wasn't just a suggestion.
Oh no, it was law. The text says the military and civilians obeyed it strictly. Everyone was terrified. You don't mess with a ruler who just burned her ex-boyfriend to ash.
Everyone except, apparently, the Qin family.
Right. So enter Qin Shubao, the Duke of Yi. And we really need to pause on who this guy is.
Okay.
If you were making a movie about the founding of the Tang Dynasty, Qin Shubao is your main action hero. He is the last surviving member of the Lingyan Pavilion.
The Lingyan Pavilion. Remind us what that is.
It's like the Hall of Fame mixed with Mount Rushmore. The emperor had commissioned portraits of the 24 greatest generals who helped build the empire, and Qin Shubao is the only one left alive. He's a living monument.
So he's basically Tang Dynasty royalty, a living legend. And his family is having a party.
A huge party. His grandson, Qin Yu, just had twin boys. This is a massive deal. In a culture that values lineage above almost everything, securing the next generation, with twins, no less, it's a huge blessing. So they're holding the soup cake gathering.
Soup cakes. I'm assuming we aren't talking about literal cake.
No, it's noodles. Long noodles for long life. It's the traditional month-old celebration for babies. You invite everyone. Family, colleagues, officials. It's a networking event as much as it is a party.
But you can't really serve vegetarian noodles at a networking event for the elite, can you?
Not if you want to show respect, not if you want to save face. To properly celebrate this huge occasion, the Qin family decides to take a risk. They prepare meat. The text mentions delicacies from water and land.
So they are knowingly breaking a direct imperial decree.
They're gambling. They're gambling that the sanctity of their home and the immense status of their grandfather will protect them. And for the most part, the guests get it. They eat, they drink, and they keep their mouths shut.
Except for two people.
Fu Yui and Du Su.
These guys, the source just paints them as slimy.
They're the archetypal small man, the Shaoran in Confucian terms. Think of them as like the middle management bureaucrats who are desperate to climb the ladder, but they have no real talent, so they rely on snitching.
Right.
They're at the party, eating the food, smiling at the host, but inwardly, they're just calculating how they can use this to get a promotion.
And this leads us to the central image of the entire story. Du Su takes a meat bun, a pork bun, and hides it in his sleeve.
It is such a grimy detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
These are heavy silk court robes with these wide sleeves, and he's just shoving a greasy, steamed bun in there. It's probably staining the fabric. It just speaks to his desperation.
He needs physical evidence.
He needs a smoking gun to take down a war hero. Or, in this case...
The smoking bun.
Exactly. They finish the meal, they bow to the host, they leave. The Qin family goes to sleep thinking, phew, we pulled it off. But the next morning, the trap springs.
Court is dismissed, but Du Su and Fu Yui stay behind. They go straight to the Empress.
And they lay it all out. Du Su produces the bun. He says basically, Your Majesty, you ordered this band to save the nation from disaster, but the Qin family thinks they are above your law. Look at this.
And the other guy, Fu Yui, he piles on, right? He accuses the in-law, Zhang Dai, of helping cover it up.
Yep. They think they've just handed the Empress a treason case on a silver platter. They are expecting a reward.
And based on the withered tree incident, they have every reason to think this is going to work. She kills people for disrespect. This is open defiance.
So Wu Zetian summons the family. She calls in Qin Huaiyu, the son, and Zhang Dai, the in-law. And the way she handles this is just fascinating. She doesn't scream. She doesn't threaten.
She starts pleasantly.
Which is almost worse.
It is.
She says, oh, I hear there were twins born. What a joyous occasion. She's lulling them into a false sense of security. And she just casually asks, did you entertain guests yesterday?
And what does Qin Huaiyu do?
He has to tell the truth. He says, my father is old, and we wanted to comfort him and celebrate the new generation. We had a small gathering. But then he asks, and you can just imagine him trembling, how did your majesty know?
And she pulls out the bun.
The sleeve bun.
I can only imagine the temperature in that room dropping by about 20 degrees.
The source says they were terrified. They're banging their heads on the floor, apologizing, saying they deserve 10,000 deaths. They know the law. They know the penalty.
But then comes the twist. The Empress. She laughs.
She laughs. And this is where we really have to talk about the philosophy at play here. It's a clash between legalism and Confucianism.
Okay, walk us through that.
Legalism says the law is absolute. You break the rule, you get punished, period. That's what the snitches, Du Su and Fu Yui, are banking on. But Confucianism is all about hierarchy and relationships. specifically filial piety, or Shao, the sacred duty you have to care for your parents and your ancestors.
So the Empress has to choose. Is her ban on meat more important than a son's duty to his aging, heroic father?
And she chooses the father. She looks at the Qin family and says, and I'm paraphrasing here, I issued the ban to stop mindless slaughter by commoners. But you were celebrating new life. You were comforting an old hero of the empire.
So she creates an exemption based on intent.
Yes, she validates their filial piety. She decides that honoring the old guard and the family line is actually a higher spiritual good than her temporary ban on pork. Is a brilliant political move.
How so?
Well, if she executes the Qin family, she looks like a tyrant who hates the heroes that built the dynasty. By sparing them, she looks like a wise, benevolent matriarch who understands human nature. She kind of co-ops their good reputation for herself.
But she doesn't just let them go. She turns her attention to the guys with the bun.
And this is my favorite part. She looks at Qin Huayu and says, in the future, when you hold a party, simply choose your guests more carefully.
Ouch.
And then she points right at Fu Yui and Du Su. Do not invite the likes of these people again.
That is devastating. She didn't punish them legally, but she completely destroyed them socially.
She defined them as Sharon, as some old men. She basically announced to the entire court, these men will accept your hospitality, eat your food, and then hide leftovers in their sleeves to get you killed. They have no honor.
It's the ultimate HR violation. She's saying, I might be a tyrant, but I'm not a rat.
Precisely. She values loyalty. The Qin family broke the law, but they were loyal to each other. The snitches were loyal to nothing but their own ambition. And the reaction from the court is immediate. The other officials actually spit on them as they leave.
So the Qin family walks away, not only safe, but rewarded.
Yes. In the aftermath, the Empress sends gifts, colorful satin and gold coins, to the newborn twins. She even names them.
She names them.
She names them Qin Sixiao and Qin Kexiao.
And what do those names mean?
Thinking of filial piety and able to be filial, she literally brands the children with a lesson from the trial. It's a reminder. You are alive because of filial piety. Don't you ever forget that.
That is some heady branding for a baby. But the story ends on a really somber note. We've been talking about the old guard, but time always wins in the end.
It does. The source material's tone shifts dramatically here. Less than a month after this whole triumph, Qin Shubao's mother dies. And Qin Shubao, the invincible general, is so overcome with grief that he falls ill and dies shortly after.
The last portrait in the pavilion.
The very last one. And when he dies, the Empress suspends court for 3 days to mourn him. It marks the official end of the founding generation.
It really recontextualizes the whole meat bun trial, doesn't it? She must have known.
That leniency wasn't just about policy. It was a final act of respect for the era that built the very throne she was sitting on. She protected his legacy from the petty bureaucrats of the New World.